Hey everyone, just want to encourage you to find us on your listening platform and give us a rating. Anywhere you listen to that has a rating system, go on over and give us a rating and maybe leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. These ratings really do help. Thank you so much for listening. On to this week's episode.
Nicole, you're like a movie buff, right?
Sort of.
Sort of.
What? Sort of.
Film? Like, what are the films that have like kind of that like scandal behind them? That they're like more famous for the scandal than they are for the film themselves, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many
like
of them.
Geely comes to mind.
Yeah. Cleopatra is one of them with Elizabeth Taylor and why can't I think of his name right now? Richard Burton. Yeah, where they had an affair and they were caught with camera. Paparazzi caught them and stuff, and it was like really famous. Scandalous. Another actually big one was The Last Picture Show, 1971, when Peter Bogdanovich left his wife for Sybil Shepherd, and that like whole subsequent thing became so newsworthy that they made a movie out of it in the 80s. So yeah, like
you're missing a big one.
So that I was keeping for the end, unless you're thinking of a different one than our topic today.
No, I think I was only thinking of the topic one. Oh, let me see. If Eddie Z, you're in the house. Do you know any movies that have like scandal that are more famous for the scandal than they are the film themselves?
No, not really.
No? Okay. Great conversation, guys.
Don't Worry, Darling is probably the most recent version of this.
That's a good one. That is a very, very recent example that of the scandal is more entertaining than the film itself. Although I haven't seen the film.
Way more entertaining.
Oh, is okay. You saw the film?
I saw the film. Yes.
I wanted it to be good because the trailer made it look so good, like so interesting. That's a shame.
It's worth watching because there's some good discussion prompts, but overall I was left kind of disappointed by the film. But
all right, Nicole, I'm telling you right now, that is not why I watch movies. I don't watch movies just to have discussions. All right, I like to have discussions while I'm watching.
You watch them for wigs.
I watch them for. Don't even get me started. Don't even. All right.
But this is a great cold open because I think when anyone thinks about this, like, oh, scandals more popular than the movie, this movie comes to mind 100%.
Yep, and that is Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and its 2024 remake by the same name, and its 1996 predecessor, which existed only for 9 episodes, a TV show also by the name Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
My gosh, so many.
You guys excited? So many spies amongst us.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to do a lightning round with at least who we like best out of the Mr. and the Mrs. So can't wait for that.
I'm so down.
Stick to the end of the episode to hear that. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Rolando.
And I'm Eddie Z.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals.
An original podcast
about unoriginality. Are doing this in a belated honor of Valentine's Day. Did you guys have any special Valentine's Day plans?
Well, we don't really celebrate Valentine's Day because our anniversary is 2 days later. And so it's just better that way, right? like why pay for a prefixed meal when 2 days later we'll have an anniversary dinner? Just like have a better meal.
That is valid, 100%. Yeah.
So Eddie and I went for dinner yesterday. Oh no, not yesterday. On our anniversary, we went
which was the Friday
dinner. Yeah, which was Friday, and then yesterday we also decided, fuck it, we'll go out for dinner. Also, it's the holiday weekend, so we went for dinner. We had sushi last night.
Nice.
We invited you actually, Nicole, and you were busy.
Yes, unfortunately. Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, you missed out on a delicious meal. And then we checked out this new place in West New York called Sticky Tiki. It's like a dessert place. Really, really good.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, highly recommend. Check out, if you guys go, check out their pistachio banana crepe. So good. It's so good. And then we wrapped up our anniversary weekend by watching True Detective, the final episode of the new season.
So I was going to say, do you have like any, like, do you like to watch lovey-dovey or more romantic things around like Valentine's or anniversary?
True Detective
is as
It's
romantic
not
as it gets.
Yeah, I like my romance as a side thing wrapped up in supernatural or
Mm.
spy or mystery thriller. Yeah,
Yeah,
I not a
no
big
ounce of
Same.
romance in this show, but it's so
yeah,
good. You
so
would love
good,
it.
so good.
You would love it. Jodie
Oh my
Foster,
god,
amazing.
We love Jodie Foster. Yeah.
it's so good.
She's in our club, right?
I'm sorry, Jodie.
Is she out?
Yeah. No. Yeah. She's totally
She,
out.
okay.
Yeah.
No, she was great.
Yeah. No. I mean, I'm a big Jodie. I'm like that. She has somewhat of a mini comeback right now because she hasn't really been in anything, and now here she is in Naiad with like Academy Award nominated film, and now this show. So it's nice.
Oh,
to see
she's
her
gonna
back.
definitely get an Emmy nom for this show. She's so good, but it's so. I was reading an article about like why is this show so in your face heterosexual when it should be so queer coded. and it's true.
I love
Like
that article
it's
already.
how hetero this show is like so in your face about it, and yet it feels like it should be a very queer show.
Yeah.
It's an interesting article and stuff, but I loved it, and I still love the show. The show's so good.
So funny enough too, because the opposite of rom-com. My significant other, she's really into rom-com. So we've been watching rom-coms lately, and I was like debating as to whether or not this movie is a rom-com. Do you think it's a rom-com?
I don't. It's not a comedy, right? It's more like
I think it's a
It's
comedy.
kind of funny.
Yeah.
There's some funny elements. I don't know if it's not like a ha 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 comedy. I don't know. It's definitely a rom action film,
Mm.
right? Like I would say because I think that they take more. The action takes more precedence over the comedy.
Yeah. It's like action rom-com. I mean, it's definitely romantic, and it attempts at least at being funny. But I guess to classify it as a rom-com would be maybe a little bit ambitious, which is interesting because rom-com, that's really hard to define. Like, unless it's, some Reese Witherspoon or Julia Roberts movie, there are some movies that it's like, is this a rom-com or is this not? And I remember even in this podcast, we've established like fam-com, like comedies that are more
Family
centered.
comedies.
There's not necessarily love story and all this stuff. So maybe this is like action comedies. I don't know. But it's been a while since I've seen this film, and I have never.
Did you see it in theaters?
I saw it in theaters. I remember seeing it in theaters. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. But did you see it for Angelina?
Oh yeah, I was a big Angie fan. Kind of still am. If she would be in something, I think I'd go see it for her. So.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, she's given up acting to like pursue.
She's coming back?
I don't. What does she do? What is she doing?
Well, she's pretty much devoting her time to humanitarianism, but she's gonna be in the new Pablo Larraín film. He's gonna make a movie about Maria Callas, and she's gonna be Maria Callas.
Did you see The Eternals? She was in The Eternals.
No, I didn't see that.
Wow, I guess not really the big fan that you claim to be.
That's how much I would not want to see a Marvel movie.
So, but the shame thing about The Eternals, I think it's a beautiful film. It's like the least Marvel movie that they've made, and I think that's why it got so buoyed. Right, like it just wasn't liked because of how un-Marvel it was, and it was just a gorgeous film though. Who's the director?
Chloe Zhao, yeah.
Yeah. So
I know it. I mean, good for her that she made a film that she wanted to make as her second film after Nomadland. So
yeah, I mean, she got that paycheck, and she still made it kind of her own.
yeah, that's like kind of the dream. I guess the dream would be if people liked it. But
yeah.
So we got a lot of properties to talk about today, and I just want to draw your attention to the fact that there's also a 1941 film called Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Did you see this upon your research?
No, I do know of the 1941 Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but it's not about spies.
It's not about spies. It's actually a domestic comedy. It's got Carol Lombard and Robert Montgomery in it, and it's directed by Alfred Hitchcock.
Yes, the Alfred Hitchcock Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
The only comedy he ever made, and it's just not one that people talk about when it comes to Alfred Hitchcock.
Really? I thought Rope was a comedy.
Rope is not a comedy, and I highly recommend. Oh, you've seen Rope. Did you like Rope?
I've seen that. I like Rope. I thought it was a comedy.
I guess
two gay men trying to hide a body.
Yeah.
I don't know. Nothing more farcical than that, in my opinion.
I don't think you should like list it on Letterboxd or IMDb as a comedy, but like if you find humor in it, for sure.
Watch me. I would have make sure I put that on my review.
I love Rope. Rope is probably one of my top 5 Hitchcock movies.
It is a good film.
The only other comedy he made was like The Trouble with Harry or something. He just wasn't known for that. So, but this movie we're not going to talk about. It wasn't part of our, podcast watching preparation. I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to that because I'm maybe someone who's listening knows about this movie. But another piece that you might not know about is the CBS show that came out in 1996.
Yeah, this show got lost to history.
Got super lost.
I only found out about it through some research, and according to my research, it's also not officially part of like the Mr. and Mrs. Smith like canon per se, right? Like it's not officially, but like the similarities are just so similar that it's just like impossible to ignore, right?
Yeah.
And the plot of the Mr. and Mrs. Smith pilot show for CBS is that there are two spies in the pilot. They're from competing agencies trying to get their mark, and eventually she gets fired as a Mrs. Smith, and so she gets hired by the Mr. Smith's agency, and they end up posing as a married couple throughout the rest of their adventures. And the show was not well received by critics.
I mean, yeah.
They got canceled after 9 episodes.
Yeah, and the remaining, they had like shot 13 episodes, and they didn't even air the remaining 4. They only aired them in like overseas, not in this country.
Let me tell you, I missed the day. This is what's wrong with like today's streaming era. Like the idea of like missing episodes just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sometimes a shame because there are shows on streaming that do not deserve to get past like 3 episodes, right? Like I think it's such a I don't know. It's something that I feel like this generation is missing. Like they don't understand what it's like to wait week by week and watch a show and then like realize, oh wait, it's not coming back because it's so terrible. Like, like these shows sometimes had like 1 or 2 fans and they're just gone forever and they can never see it again.
It's kind of like when My So-Called Life got canceled and like people were like, but it's like halfway, like there's a cliffhanger. There's this whole story that we're never going to see again, and like incompleted stories and stuff that were just different. They hit differently. I mean, shows still get canceled now, but still.
Yeah, they just get canceled differently. Sometimes they get quiet canceled in which like they just won't get picked up. And we won't hear about it until like 3 years later. Be like, yeah, no, we're officially canceling this.
Yeah, I know that happened. That happened to a couple of the shows that we've covered on this podcast that we loved too. So,
One Day at a Time is one of them.
Yeah, Dark Crystal.
The Dark Crystal after its Emmy win.
Yeah, seriously, what a good friggin' show that was, man.
Speaking of My So-Called Life, I'm surprised that one hasn't come back for like a revival.
Yeah. Like a reboot of that I could see happening as well.
I don't know if I could see a reboot that's so of its time. Maybe I think like seeing where the characters played by Jared Leto and Claire Danes are.
Maybe.
What are they doing?
Yeah.
They could definitely do it.
So it's interesting because Mr. and Mrs. Smith story is kind of the same in all 3 properties, yet they all do things a little different when it comes to their relationship.
Yeah.
So in this first series, they're both spies, and they find each other while they're both working kind of the same job. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of becomes obsessed with her, and
he almost basically falls in love with her.
Yeah. By the way,
although played by Maria Bello,
yeah. So
I don't blame him.
Mr. Smith in this case is Scott Bakula from Quantum Leap and Star Trek fame, and Maria Bello and Looking, and Maria Bello is in this from like Coyote Ugly. What else has she been in? Payback.
That's all I really know.
Yeah,
I don't even know her from Payback.
Maria Bello from Maria Bello fame.
I know her from Coyote Ugly.
There you go.
That's really it.
And I actually was like shocked that it came out in 1996 because I was like, Maria Bello's been like, how old is this woman? My God, she ages really well.
That's also true. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty much they work for a private security organization known as a factory, and they're like they keep kind of becoming entangled into one another and crossing paths, but he's also going out of his way to like find her, and she's just like not having it. Is the dog snoring into the mic? Because I think I hear a little bit of a snore.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually moved the mic, so
that's adorable. I think I might keep that in because listening to your guys' pup snore is so precious.
He's a heavy snorer, this one too. Yeah. So, but in the first episode, they're actually working for different agencies, right? Because like,
Yeah.
Scott Bakula Smith doesn't know who she is, and I was surprised at like kind of what like we saw him with his pants down and like her legs wrapped around him in their very first interaction, right? Like that's their way to like get past security, right? Like pretend like they're having sex. Smart. But I was just like, wow, this is pretty. I didn't think they would show this on like CBS on broadcast television in the
I know, right?
90s.
I feel like CBS is like specific demographic of like people of a certain age, older age, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
they
I think CBS skews way older.
they kind of want their Magnum PI, but they don't want they want like nothing too sensational.
Yeah. And this was pre 24 because 24 was CBS, correct?
Girl, that was Fox.
That was
That
Fox?
was Fox. That was Fox. Yes,
Ooh.
yes.
What was the big
It was.
90s show on CBS?
What was
it Chuck Norris? The Chuck Norris?
God,
Let's
was
see.
it really? Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yes.
They also had Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. Yeah, they had the worst shows.
Wow.
The shows that I didn't want to watch as a kid.
They
on
had a
CBS.
lot of sitcoms. I think their biggest drama was Murder, She Wrote. One of the greatest shows of all time.
For you now, but like as a kid,
For
did you want to watch that as a kid?
too. Yeah, I would have loved to have watched that as a child.
Interesting. No, CBS was always a channel I avoided as a kid.
Yeah, CBS definitely as a child. I think NBC was cool and ABC was cool. So
Oh yeah, ABC was Disney, so.
did you watch more than one? Because the first pilot, I think all of them actually are on YouTube.
Oh, I just saw the pilot.
I just saw the pilot too. I mean, it was not very good. In terms of music, oh my gosh, this music sounded like the music that you hear when you're playing like a computer or an iPhone game.
I agree. Yeah.
Which is just like so templatey, and like I know this was like the 90s and maybe they just like took, but like the music was nonstop and was so gimmicky and so awful. And it's interesting how much music I think plays a part in all three of these pieces, is how they make the piece or break the piece. In this case, it 100% broke it. It was obnoxious.
Yeah, the music was obnoxious. I think the writing was also just terrible.
The writing was not good. Their dynamic did not work in that first episode. He
really didn't.
was so annoying.
They also didn't have chemistry, I feel like.
Yeah, they didn't have chemistry, yeah.
It was weird. I mean, it could be. I mean, I feel like at least by the looks department, like not that Scott Bakula is not attractive, but like clearly much older than Maria Bello's character.
Yeah, he had almost too much personality, and she had like none personality, which is definitely the writing. But
she was trying to be tough. I mean, this is something that you see. This is the other thing that you're going to see in all three of the Smiths, right? The woman is always the harder one.
Yep.
She's usually painted to be colder.
Yep, 100%. The women, yeah, usually, I guess they're like the smarter one, or the one that has like their wits about them a little bit more. The guy's more of like a kind of a buffoon, especially in the first two, I think. But
all three.
Okay, so you saw a little bit more of the new one, but still, like, it was just, it didn't work. I could see why it got canceled. Again, I think these actors are really good, but outside of this property, it just didn't come together. The best thing that we got from Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the TV show, was that Timothy Olyphant got his acting debut there. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, I was surprised when I saw him. Like, oh my god, is that Timothy Olyphant? First of all, he comes in with like that like horrible soul patch.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it took me a second. I was just like, that's Timothy Olyphant. I didn't know he was in this. And of course, he only lives for the first episode because he turns out to be like a secret villain by the end of the first episode that she kills.
Yep.
He kills. I forget. One of the Smiths kill him.
Too bad. He was the best part about it. I mean, it was just templatey. And so it's nice to know that even in the 90s, people looked at it and said, this is not good. Because it wasn't good.
No, it certainly was not. So there's a reason why it was canceled after only 9 episodes. And then that's it. Mr. and Mrs. Smith would relive again, 9 years later?
9 years later. Yeah.
A film.
Yes. Originally that it wasn't supposed to be Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie.
Who was it supposed to be originally?
It was supposed to be Brad Pitt and Nicole Kidman.
Oh, I don't know if...
Yeah, Nicole Kidman just right after birth would have been in this movie.
Oh. I hope they would have given her a wig.
Sorry, we watched Birth outside of the podcast. A little bit of insideness there. And then actually, Lyman, the filmmaker, Doug Lyman, he considered Will Smith and Catherine Zeta-Jones. He also thought about Johnny Depp and Cate Blanchett. Apparently,
Will Smith and Catherine Zeta-Jones, I may have worked in 2005.
In 2005, yeah, it might have.
In 2005, there's a good chance Will Smith and Catherine Zeta-Jones, like, what a world we would be living in. I feel like that could have been easily franchisable.
I think so too, because you know what? Right after Nicole Kidman left, Brad Pitt left. But then once they got Angelina Jolie to sign, Brad Pitt came back on.
Do you think okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, right, like the salacious affairs that surround this film are the fact that Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie are known to have met during the filming of this film. And this is also this is the time that Brad Pitt and Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston went through a very public, very, very tabloid spectacle of a divorce. And the allegations have always been that Brad Pitt cheated on Jennifer Aniston with Angelina Jolie on set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I don't think they've ever confirmed this, right?
No. But I mean, they've never denied it either. So, well, maybe they
That's
have.
true. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It seems like he straight up left her for Angelina Jolie because very soon after they adopted, you know, a child together, and then she got pregnant, within 2 years and stuff. So it's all that overlap is pretty crazy, and a lot of people to this day are either Team Angelina or Team Jennifer. It was just such a sensation. I was team. Let's not, you know, pit girls against each other.
Oh, come on. In this case, like, how could you not?
It's all his fault. He's the cheater.
Oh, you're right. No. Yeah. 1,000,000%. Like, Brad Pitt is 1,000,000% of the wrong. But Angelina Jolie did come off as the seductress, for sure.
I suppose so. It's because she's so sultry.
Like, you have to look at the optics about it. Of course. The optics of it is just like you have Jennifer Aniston, America's sweetheart from Friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not anywhere near as, like, as, like, sultry as Angelina Jolie, who comes in with her big lips and her big shoulders and her giant breasts, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like...
Yeah, giant breasts. I think it's hard because obviously what happened, if it happened, is wrong, right? We're not here to say you should cheat. But, you know, relationships are complicated, and we don't know both sides of the story. And it takes two to tango, and nobody is ever really truly, unless, you know, it's like physical abuse or whatever, a victim. Like, you know, they contribute to factors of why things happen. So, I don't know. I'm being very diplomatic about this.
You truly are. I'm on the side. I was Jen Aniston all the way.
I think, yeah.
First of all, I was a huge Friends fan.
Yeah, there you go.
When
See?
this is all happening, right? So, like, it's just like, how could Brad Pitt do this to her? After they were on an episode together.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good episode. I'm huge hots for Angelina Jolie at that time. So, of course, I was Team Angelina.
I also did, but I did want to watch this movie because I wanted to know, like, it's just like, but was it worth it? And then I saw the film and I'm just like, I understand. I get it. I understand why he left Jennifer Aniston.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you know. But also, it seems like, we don't know, but it seems like she wasn't ready to maybe have a family, and he was, and Angelina already was starting a family. Like, maybe they just had things align more. I don't know. Whatever. Private shit. As a result, though, the movie was such a success, it grossed like $487 million, and it only had a budget of $110 million. But still, that's pretty, like, wow.
I can't believe that it actually... I thought this movie was a flop, to be quite honest. I didn't know that it was popular.
It was huge. Yeah, they were even talking about a sequel for a while there.
Which, now knowing that it actually was a success, like, I'm surprised it didn't get a sequel.
Well, you know why, though? It's because this movie has been accused of plagiarism.
Oh, the 1996 show?
Nope. So in 2006, this is from Wikipedia, New Zealand author Gavin Bishop accused the makers of this movie of plagiarizing his 1997 school book, The Secret Lives of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which features a husband and wife living apparently dull suburban lives, but unbeknownst to each other, both work as spies. So,
interesting. That does sound like the plot for the film.
It does, because each Mr. and Mrs. Smith takes the whole two wedded spies thing, and they do it a little differently. And in this case, in this movie, they're married, and they're both spies on the side, but they're living pseudo lives as like domesticated people to their partner. So like he thinks that she's just a housewife, and she thinks he's just like a plumber. Or
no.
something.
She has a job.
Oh
She's
yeah.
Like I don't know what he thinks she does, but she has a job.
Yeah, her
job is like kind of nondescript, to be quite honest. She wears a business suit and goes to work.
Pretty much, yeah. They didn't even bother it.
Yeah, he gets to be we know he works in construction, right?
Mm-hmm,
like that's what he does.
And they work at two separate places, essentially. They're spies for two different organizations.
See, so are they spies or are they just assassins?
I think they're more assassins, honestly.
Yeah, this Mr. and Mrs. Smith were more like assassins than they were like collecting intel. Unlike the 1996 show, which they were like saving people at times or like collecting intel.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one seems to be more like they get a name.
They're almost like special ops. Yeah.
You're right. So
was in
like
in the TV series in the 1996 TV series 2000 or whenever it was. Was it was she an assassin? That was like her primary thing. The Scott Bakula one.
Oh, in the 1996 one?
Yeah, was that
she
Jane
was the assassin?
Yeah, she was the assassin.
Yeah, she was the assassin, right? So that was her specialty in her field. He was just like an agent, it seemed like, and stuff. So that's why they ended up getting paired up together.
Yeah, which actually that makes sense that they would have different jobs.
Specialties.
Yeah, specialties. There you go. Yeah.
I like to say skill sets.
That's a good way of saying it too.
So yeah, but in this version, so they're more or less kill for hire, probably like, quasi governmental subcontractors. And so, or whoever's the highest bidder, they'll do these jobs for. And yes, but they do these jobs while trying to maintain like this like domestic life with each other.
Yes. And then they pretty much are assigned to kill each other. Because at the end of the film, spoiler, like these two organizations decided that they're kind of like, what's that word? They're bad for business, essentially, so they need to be kind of expelled. So
because they're in a relationship together.
Yeah.
I forgot like how I was rewatching it, and it starts getting a little convoluted by the end of it, right? So both of them are sent by their agencies to kill or to kidnap a prisoner transfer, and they both interrupt each other's mission, and as a result, both of them are sent to like identify who this other agent was that interrupted them, and that's when they come to discover that, oh my god, I'm married to this other agent. And so it becomes like a cat and mouse game of trying to kill each other. That culminates with a giant sexy fight in the house.
Yeah, because then they finally fight each other at house. They like completely demolish their house and just like
abusing each other, and they just fuck. They just like go right at it, like
just like after you fight, right?
But like again, you see the chemistry was so strong in this entirety of the film. Like that whole fight sequence is so hot because like A, they are fucking beautiful people. But B, like when it comes to this, it wasn't even like a sex scene, right? They just like kiss and stuff and like rip each other's clothes, and we don't see anything dirty. But like it's so hot and sweaty when you're watching this.
Yep,
it's very steamy.
Yep, you could see how they fell in love essentially. So, and it's like almost uncomfortable once you know the backstory and that they did like break up a marriage during this movie. So. But so that's like kind of like the breaking point, and then they decide that instead of going against each other, they'll come together, and that they're gonna like join forces to pretty much fuck their bosses and like just be like, what's that word, like rogue, go rogue.
Yeah, go rogue, because their bosses now put a hit on both of them individually, and all the assassins are now trying to kill them, or at least both agencies are, and they realize that. This is where I get confused. Adam Brody's character,
the tank.
He was kind of assigned to like get them. He was a bait, right? They wanted him to try to catch him because both agencies at this point were just kind of done with him.
Yeah,
right.
Pretty much, yeah. That he's merely bait and an intern hired by each of their employers after they discovered the Smiths were married. So it was pretty
That's
much
it.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they really hoped that they would kill each other.
I didn't. Yeah.
This
The third act is kind of where the movie falls apart, for sure.
Yeah, everything in this movie is a MacGuffin. Essentially, it's just like, are they gonna be together? Are they gonna kill each other? That's it. You know, are they gonna find out? Like any of that other stuff is just so unimportant.
Mm-hmm.
This movie does not really hold up that well.
Oh no!
But
it didn't. It did it when I saw it in 2000.
Yeah, but I was just about to say that. But even when it came out, I was like, this movie is just—it's so basic. Doug Liman is a pretty okay filmmaker. He's like known for making these type of movies, like Born Identity, which I think is probably better.
Oh, I didn't know he made Born Identity.
Mm-hmm. He made Jumper.
Okay. I like Jump. No, I'm thinking of a different one. Yeah, no, I do not like Jumper.
Yeah, that's a little different.
Looper.
Looper, yes, that's very different for sure. He did Edge of Tomorrow, the Tom Cruise movie.
Whoa. Okay, now that movie is fantastic. Have you seen?
That's a Tom Cruise movie I haven't seen. I would see it.
Oh, that is a good movie. Tom Cruise is fine in it. The star of this film is 1,000,000% Emily Blunt. She steals the show in this entirety of the film. It's so good. Okay. And this is where I realize the star power that is Emily Blunt, because she plays like a really, really sexy but like masculine woman.
Okay. Ooh.
Like she's so like her like there's a scene where she's doing like a one-handed push-up that she looks so fucking good though.
I mean,
like it's so she's able to carry like feminine and masculine energy in this one character, and she does it so well.
I would see it. Now
it just had a terrible title. That's really what happened.
That's true. It isn't the best. It's a very generic title.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Emily Blunt's fantastic, so I would totally now see it after this.
You check it out. I love it.
He's also going to be the filmmaker who's updating Roadhouse, so we'll be talking about him again soon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very, very soon.
And
yeah.
he's being very vocal with his disappointment in the release of Roadhouse, which again we'll talk about. Like he's like I think he wants his name removed because he's so upset that it's not opening in theaters. And
I didn't know it was going to be direct to streaming. That makes me happy.
Yeah, they're putting it direct to streaming, and he's like totally upset because Jake Gyllenhaal could win an Oscar for this movie.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this guy is delusional, right? Living in denial. All right.
Yeah. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal's a really interesting actor working, but that's taking the cake.
There's no way Jake Gyllenhaal himself believes that he's going to win an Oscar for fucking Roadhouse.
No, I'm sorry, because there's no way that this movie could even compete with the 1990 masterpiece that is Roadhouse. So
I've never seen it. So.
I cannot wait for you to see it.
Oh, Eddie's reaction here.
Oh, that movie is just the best. It's one of my favorite movies.
I only know Roadhouse from Family Guy.
I love Roadhouse.
Yeah,
it's like the gayest straight film in the world.
So true.
Okay.
And once in a while it always plays in the background in Pint too.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good place. All right.
Yeah. It's like weirdly like it's very, very straight, and it plays a lot on like straight networks, but it's so gay.
Wow, that sounds exactly like True Detective Night Country.
There you go. Hey, it all
in your face
back.
heterosexual.
Love it.
Did Jodie Foster pay you or something?
I wish. Although, if any network execs out there want to sponsor us, by all means, give us an email. Right?
But so the thing about this movie too is that like it begins and it ends with them going to therapy. So they're already a married couple, and what brought them together was their love, which is actually something that's in direct contrast to the new series. Which I don't know if I've seen a lot of publicity for this movie on like my feed, like articles being written and stuff. Apparently I saw that Donald Glover approached Brad Pitt, and Brad Pitt was like not helpful with input about how he should play this character. Did you see that?
I did not know that. I believe it, because does Brad Pitt want to revisit that time period of his life where it was just nothing but paparazzi and tabloids?
Yeah, good point. And he probably never took the movie seriously.
They literally were on the front cover of practically all magazines for like a good decade.
Jennifer Aniston is a household name because of this
that
scandal.
Yes.
Like truly, she would have been forgotten by now after Friends ended, had it not been for this scandal. And I'm not saying that because she has no talent or anything. I'm just saying that that's what happens to sitcom stars, right? Like they fade away with time. She has not because of how synonymous she is with
Her
like the
face
tabloids.
every day
Yeah.
is on some cover. She
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah.
on some show.
Mm-hmm. It was kind of the best worst thing that could have ever happened to her, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, in a way.
I mean, yeah, she was American Sweetheart, and then she was America's Sweetheart who got her heart broken
Mm-hmm. So publicly.
too. So
Yeah.
So Brad Pitt didn't want to help Donald Glover.
Yeah, he just wasn't the most helpful with that's at least that's a report. Who knows if it's true? All of this is hearsay and allegedly. So
Although, like, I don't know. Well, I have some other intel about the other Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
oh, okay. Well, I didn't know until I started watching it that actually Donald Glover is one of the creators. So this is very much a passion
I got
project
some backstory for that.
All right, let's hear it.
Oh, okay. Well, we're done talking about Mr. and Mrs. Smith from 2005.
I mean, unless you have anything else to say about that movie.
I mean, I know it doesn't hold up, but what I'm asking you, like, what other scene do you think is like just as sexy as like that fight sequence?
Like of any movie?
No, of like this film, the 2005 film, because it just had like some really sexy sequences.
I mean,
like this movie is like
the
in your
morning
face
after
with the
is
sexiness.
also pretty sexy when they're kind of like, wow, so yesterday that was intense, and she's like wearing his shirt, and that's actually like, and I think it's somewhat of a famous outfit of her in like the white button down with no pants on, and him in like the white boxers and white t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Like that morning, them in that outfit, like I think that's actually a very sexy scene.
Yes. I was going to say the tango scene.
The tango scene's all right. I think.
I like it.
Yeah, well, apparently the tango scene is something that happens in every version. That's like the one thing that they carry over.
I'm trying to think. Was it in the...
They did it in the pilot. There was like a scene in the pilot where
Yeah, I remember it in the pilot. They do dance.
Yeah.
When did they dance in the Amazon one?
I don't know if they like fully danced, but in the second episode they were like going to an event in like black. They got all dressed up and stuff. So I think at that moment I just was processing that. I'm like, oh, and this is where they tango.
Oh, yeah. They do something else instead.
They do something else instead, indeed. Yeah.
They do something very different from dancing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that would be my other favorite sexy scene in the original.
So yeah, but that's it. So the film just came and went. Apparently a lot of people saw it. I did not know this, but I would have assumed a sequel would have been in the works or something, right? But not the case. Instead, the show, the property that was Mr. and Mrs. Smith was in the pipeline to get revived for some time. And before Donald Glover was cast, do you know who was going to write it originally?
No, I don't. Who?
It was Phoebe Waller-Smith.
Oh.
She was going to play Mrs. Smith.
Damn.
Right? So she was going to she was given the creative rights for it, and so she was going to go into production. However, the first person they cast was Donald Glover, and Donald Glover came in. Now, Donald Glover also has experience doing writing. He also has experience doing show running, right? Executive producing because of Atlanta, and he had an entire crew ready at his disposal. Unlike Phoebe Waller-Smith, who comes more from the British side of television making, where it's usually just one person writing an entire series. Not how it flies here in America. Ultimately, she left because of creative differences. Not necessarily a hostile one, from my understanding. More so of, okay, Donald Glover has a team, he has a crew, he has a vision also. It's not jiving with mine, because she wanted to be the sole writer and creator, so she left. And then they brought in Maya Erskine, who I thought, what a random person to bring. Have you seen her in Pen 15?
No.
Absolutely a wild choice to bring in for this. So that's where I know Maya Erskine from. She plays one of the leads in the show Pen 15, where she's like a 20 or 30 something year old woman playing like a young, like they
13-year-old girl.
Yeah, 13-year-old girls, right? Her and her friend.
Huh.
And the show is absolutely bonkers in how uncomfortable it makes you feel. Not because they're necessarily doing anything uncomfortable. Sometimes they do. Nothing crosses the line. But like the thing is, like their performances as 13-year-old children and their writing is so good. It's like kind of scary, like how they capture this period in the 90s, right? So that's very relatable for us, right? It's taking place like when we were kind of that age in that time period.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
stuff. And they do such great exploration
I've heard of this show,
like
yeah.
what it was to being a child in this day and age. I recommend it. But this is where I knew her from, right? So when I heard she was going to be Mrs. Smith, I'm just like, that's who they cast as Mrs. Smith? Like, she's not. I mean, I was thinking of Angelina Jolie. Where's the sex appeal? Where is the sultriness, right? So I was already coming into this like a little hesitant as a result. Nothing against Maya Erskine, but I just know her in a whole different kind of a role.
Yeah, and kind of
yes.
I didn't know what to make of Donald Glover either. I haven't seen him in too much, but I don't really think of him as sexy, which kind of changed after this. I was like, oh,
interesting. I also never thought of him as sexy per se. Handsome guy, cute. I loved him in Community. He's one of the writers also on 30 Rock.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy his work. I haven't seen Atlanta though, and I hear people do rave about Atlanta.
Yeah, same.
So I can't speak to it, but I hear it's good. And I never thought of him either sexy. Then this show comes along, and I don't know if it's just the beard and that he put on some muscle, but like
the black underwear.
So there's a difference between these two shows, right?
Yeah.
I think the 2005 property is so in your face with the sex appeal, but that's because they have two very sexy people in the roles and they're doing sexy things. I think this show is sexy in a different way.
Yeah.
Like this show understands sensuality, I feel like almost. Like it's not, the sex isn't about like how attractive these people are. The sex is in the chemistry.
Well, that's what it is to be sexy, right? If you're like hot, like physically you just have attributes that everyone can, let's say, agree on that makes you a very, very attractive person. But you don't have to necessarily be attractive to be sexy. And I think that actually being sexy is like, I think that's better than being hot. Like, I think that sexiness and like sexual chemistry and all of those like vibes are just, it's energy. It's chemistry. It's those things. So I would agree that this show isn't necessarily about two hot people, but like there's a lot of sexiness going on, which I overall think is way more appealing.
I agree.
And
I agree.
I had no idea. I didn't even know that the show was being done. I very recently watched it. I had seen a little bit about it on my feed. I had no idea what to expect going in. First of all, the amount of stars that I saw in the episodes that I did, I'm like, wow. Alexander Skarsgård, John Turturro, Paul Dano. I hear
Paul Dano
randomly, right? Which I know he's gonna come back.
There is what's her name from American Horror Story?
Sarah Paulson.
Sarah Paulson.
Yeah.
She plays a therapist. You also have Ron Perlman.
Uh-huh. And I hear Parker Posey.
Parker Posey, yes.
We love her. She was the villain in the very first episode we ever covered, Lost in Space. And she just, I don't know. I fucking love. I would keep watching the show for Parker Posey.
Oh.
Coincidentally, wasn't she also a Smith in that one?
Is she?
She was a Dr. Smith. Yes,
she was. Yeah,
and she too here plays another Smith.
That's great. I love that.
So Nicole, you have admitted to us that you haven't seen the entire series, right?
I have not watched all 8 episodes.
Do you want me and Eddie to try to go around without spoiling it? Because what were your thoughts so far on the shows that you've seen, on the episodes that you've seen? Like overall, what are your vibe of the show?
I mean, overall, I was very surprised by it, and I do think it's good. You know how earlier too I said like music can make or break it. Like I actually think that the score and the way that they like kind of create the sound for the show really, really added to it. It almost felt like way more mysterious because of it too. And there is this sort of like mystery quality to it. I mean,
because like the 2005 film had like a lot of like, it felt like flamenco kind of music, I think, right? Like kind of like that guitar, the Spanish guitar.
Yeah, because they fell in love in Colombia and stuff, so.
Yeah,
which is
it just didn't
weird.
Didn't feel spy-ish.
It felt kind of bland and generic. Whereas this one I think is really successful. The music is by David Fleming. I don't really know David Fleming's music elsewhere, but I kind of want to get more familiar with him. And I liked the approach. I like the fact that like first one's about these two people who stumble across each other and he like pursues her and they're both like in the field, but they want he wants to pursue like kind of like a relationship with her. It's like, hey, we have chemistry, we were vibing. I think he said something like that. Second movie is about a married couple who find out that they're spies. This is about two people who sign up to be spies, but become unknown to themselves, forced into a fake marriage to cover up their stories. So there's no love. There's no. We start it from they're strangers to each other, and they actually have to build out this relationship, and they have to get to know each other. I mean, they have to live together and pretend like they're married and conduct all of this business that they signed up for with each other. And I think that was really smart in how they were to approach a television version of this. If this was a film, they probably could have done that too, but as a TV series, that lends itself to character development over a bunch of episodes, which I can already see it would probably really thrive in that sense.
Yeah. Ultimately, this show is about a relationship. The beginnings to the end question mark about it, of it. And it's just in the setting of like a spy thriller, right? Because the spy storylines are actually not at all front and center in all the episodes. Sometimes you just get glimpses of them. Sometimes they're just like maybe in the last like tail end of it. There's one episode in particular where you meet two other Smiths, like another couple. And so when they get sent off on like this mission by accident, the action sequences are so fast and cut and hectic intentionally, right? Because like that's kind of their mind frame of what's happening. And then there's like the aftermath of that's what we focus on, like them in utter shock, like what the hell just happened kind of mentality. And again, it's just like I think the show, I thought it was gonna be way more action oriented, right? Because let's be real, we're in 2024. I think now because of the budgets of TV shows and how they ballooned, you just assume a lot of this program is going to be like such a visual spectacle is what you're expecting.
Yeah.
That's not the case. This show is actually very, very grounded on the fact that this is a show about this couple that is experiencing all the pitfalls that come with being in a relationship and stuff. And what does that mean? And it was an interesting take that I wasn't expecting for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, especially coming from knowing, the 2005 film. I kept telling Eddie, I'm just like, wow, this is like nothing like the 2005 version. It doesn't feel like the 2005 film until the very last episode.
Yeah. I thought
so Eddie, what are your thoughts? Oh, go ahead, Nicole. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I thought it was a very strong pilot. I didn't feel necessarily the same way about episode 2, but in terms of pilot, I think it's one of the best pilots I've seen in a while.
Yeah, the pilot was good. Like when they deliver the cake and they just thought they were just delivering for their first thing, and then it explodes and they go on the run, right? And talk about like changing the vibe of an episode so quickly, like because you're just following this couple and it seems so mundane what they're doing, and then finally you get the action, and the action you're experiencing it no longer from like this point of like kind of you're like there's like this feeling of like oh my god, like I don't know, the chase that pursues, like they're on the run because they just blew up a house, it just felt so, I don't know, it just didn't feel, it changed the vibe so much, but in a good way. Like I was just like, oh, like, and it kind of sets you up for what the rest of the show is kind of going to be like. It's not a conventional spy show. It's not a conventional, like, it's not a thriller by any means. This show is definitely like not that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You said it well. But Eddie, what were you gonna say?
I definitely enjoy the direction they went with this. I mean, it's almost where they were given these set of parameters and is what they made of it too. So they had this cover and they said we have to make it look as realistic and possible as possible. But then they found a connection with each other. And they were like, why don't we explore this? And it was kind of very for what you perceive at a very quick romance as they just kind of like fell for each other, uh fell in love with each other. And you see this development as by episode 6, which was an incredible episode where you see kind of like the beginnings of their relationship. They're falling apart. And this also in how this affects their working together as these spies too. And I just love the world building that was going around with the little things that you can get, like what High would give them. They're like three strikes and you're out, living with that pressure. Like if you fell on a mission and you don't know whether that ever gets reset. Like maybe after a year of work, is it like three, like I did 60 successful missions, but I did three failures and I'm still like a target to be eliminated from this
Mm-hmm.
profession. Um, and the chemistry between these two actors on screen on this, I just was surprised on how I was rooting for them in their relationship, but also how very clever this was. Very MacGyver without being MacGyver. How like quick they would figure shit out. How very good they were, like just churn, especially the Jane character. How very much she would be like analyze the situation. Okay, I got a plan, and not tell
Mm-hmm.
him too. I love like her thing was like she would just like go into a zone and like take over, and he would be like totally like, "What the fuck are we doing?" And she would just be like taking a car and just like racing the streets of New York and just like figuring things out
Yeah.
and then when you get towards the end and it's this very human, very unraveling of their relationship and of themselves too, like on a such deeper level. It's like I'm finally gonna show you who I am, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna show me who you are, and then it ends.
Oh yeah, the way it ends in
It
such a
just so ends.
it ends
It
in such a cliffhangery way, but like
three
not in an infuriating one, right? It's more like you, the audience, get to decide what
side, yeah.
happened,
That there were
right?
three
Mm.
It doesn't
shots.
end in a way where like it doesn't end any which way, right? It leaves it open, like if there's another season, maybe, or it leaves it open. I think, which is the route that I would prefer the show to go, is this kind of this idea of an anthology show where we see just different couples, like different Mr. and Mrs. Smiths around the country and stuff, and how they interact as a couple, right? Because it doesn't. I think that's what this show showed me. It's just like, oh, I love this idea of exploring what it means to be a couple in the setting of a spy. Like, and then you can have other iterations of that. Like, what if it's an older couple? What if it's a couple that's trying to dabble with like an open relationship, right?
Hmm.
And what does that mean when you're also both of you guys assassins or spies? What if it's this couple that is trying to juggle being in a throuple because this is how they're trying to keep things interesting in their sex lives, right? It just there's lots of possibilities that they could explore with Mr. and Mrs. Smith that doesn't necessarily have to be with Donald Glover and Maya Erskine. Although I would love for them to come back because I love them together. They were so good. I think they had such great chemistry, and I was just so surprised at how much I was good. I enjoyed this show because I thought it was going to be like kind of like you watch a couple episodes and you forget about it, but it was just like right from
No,
the first episode. I just want to go back to the pilot because you both reminded me. The pilot opens with two actors. It was who one of the Skarsgård.
Yeah. Alexander Skarsgård.
And
Oh, I don't remember her name.
I don't know. I don't know her name. I don't know if she's like as big of a name, but they have like this Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt esque feel to them, and this was intentional. This was by design. They wanted it. They wanted us to see these Mr. and Mrs. Smiths die on screen to just say that's it. This is a brand new Mr. and Mrs. Smith we're looking at, and it worked because I even got that right as I was watching. I'm just like they weren't obviously Brad Pitt and Angelina, nor were they the same characters, right? But it did have this feel of like kind of closing the chapter on that 2005 storyline and kind of moving forward with this one. So
Interesting. Okay.
I thought it was a smart choice and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Well,
I will say there were some great episodes, but there's an episode that has Michaela Cole in it, and she herself is a mark. But like this is an episode that explores this idea of infidelity, right? And it's so good. This is right after their couples therapy episode, which I think is like another like the couples therapy episode is alone. Like it alone could have been a film, right? But like as an episode as a part of a whole, it was just a wonderfully told story where Sarah Paulson is playing a therapist couples therapy here to this couple now that's kind of going through a moment, and we see kind of week by week how this relationship is just unraveling, and what can be done about it, and it just culminates with just a great ending by the end of the series. I Yeah, I don't want to tell you much because I would encourage you to check out this show, to keep watching it. It's so good because it's so good at because of how clever it is in terms of like talking about relationships. And I think that's why I ultimately liked it. This is not a show, like I said, it's not a spy show. This is a show about relationships and intimacy.
I like that you say that too, because what I've gotten so far from this show that I like that the other ones didn't do is that these are not refined people, in the sense like they're not refined at their job like they are in the other series. Like they're really good at their jobs in the other ones. And they're even like super attractive, really beautiful people. Like everything about them is not necessarily relatable. Now, even though this is a show about spies and stuff, there's this weird sort of relatability, even in the way that they like fumble, talking to each other and stuff. Like they're not the best at completing their missions. They keep messing up. They're very clumsy, and then they're clumsy with each other. And that, because it's like, okay, so since this is about relationships, let's portray how relationships really are. Let's portray just how much we kind of make fools of ourselves, but like in a very charming, way, because it's just real. So. Yeah. But in a fantasy landscape of spies.
Of course. I mean, that's the big fantasy. That's the backdrop, right? That's just the backdrop. And then you have like ultimately what just feels like just real couple, like a real couple just navigating through just shit. And it works. It just worked so well. Like I was surprised at how I didn't think this show would work. I saw the trailer. I was just like, I don't know if I see. Can Donald Glover really replace Brad Pitt? Can Maya Erskine replace Angelina Jolie? The answer is no, but they didn't have to because they did something so different, so unique that it's just like I'm just like, oh, this is way better than the 2000 film and the 1996 show ever could be.
Well, the 1996 show is not much of a.
I know.
Not much of a stepping off point, but.
Any other random thoughts, Eddie, or should we just get into lightning round?
No, I mean I love the way it was shot.
Yes, it was pretty.
It was very beautifully shot. Definitely smart writing. So smart. And I've seen a couple of people's analyzations and reflections on this show, and one of the things that's been consistent is some of the best moments were just them just talking, like being in bed and just talking, or sitting on the couch and just sharing with each other. And I know how dopey that may sound, but I felt like that was just like really, I don't know, significant for their character development, for the development of the relationship, and also to see this like contrary of like how they were as spies too.
Yeah. Yeah, the last thing I did want to say though, like I had said, it's just like the way the show ended, it leaves the open possibility. Sure, we can come back for another season with maybe these characters, we'll see, TBD, or do we come back with brand new Mr. and Mrs. Smiths? And this is ultimately, I think this is not Donald Glover's writing. He wasn't exact. He directed the last episode actually, which was actually really, really wonderful. But he's one of the execs. I'm trying to think of who some of the writers were. Starring music by he just got exec producer. He might be one of the main writers and stuff then. But I was going to say, like, it does leave me wanting to know. It's just like, what would Phoebe Waller-Smith's version of this story would be? So like, if they go the route of like, okay, we're going to do a brand new Mr. and Mrs. Smith, like another couple, right? Like as an anthology, and if she would come back, like what would those stories be like, right? And I'm assuming very different, obviously. Because that's the other beauty about this. If you leave it to the writers, you're all talking about relationships through your own perspectives, and we all have different perspectives on relationships. you're just throwing a spy setting into it. So it could be really, really interesting. So we'll see. That is to be determined. By the way, did you ever watch Killing Eve?
So I know of Killing Eve, but I've never watched it.
Oh, well, Killing Eve is the first few seasons are actually really, really good. The first season, which I thought was phenomenal, is written by Phoebe Waller-Smith. Did not know this.
Yeah, I know that she's like an executive producer for it and has written a couple of episodes, but it's not like her show, not like Crashing or Fleabag. And
Right, no,
she
yeah.
needs to come back with the show.
Fleabag was so good. Again, it's one of those weird, like, what would the world be like if Phoebe Waller-Smith was on this? But we wouldn't have, the cameos, I don't think, right? Because I feel like that was probably Donald Glover's pull to get some of these cameos.
True. Yes, I think so. Yeah.
But I don't, again, alternate universe and stuff. What would it have been? But she was great. This show was great. I think Maya Erskine was my biggest surprise. How much I loved her by the end of this series. She surprised me the most, right? Because Donald Glover, I have seen him in a lot of other things, and I know he has range. Maya Erskine, I've only seen her in a really great comedy, so that was going to be a really hard hill to climb. You know what I mean? Like, when I only know her for one thing, and she's so good at that one thing, for her to, like, kind of become an action star was just like, oh, great. You know what? You've got range, girl.
Damn. I guess now she's an action star. She was very good, though. I did really like her, so... Yeah. I should continue watching it. Unfortunately, I can't say as much as you guys can, but from what I've seen, I would continue. This is a relatively good one. And, it's probably because we're only doing episodes every 2 weeks, but so far 2024 has been pretty good.
Yeah,
in terms of content, so.
I think we've only had one hiccup. I don't remember. What did we cover?
What was it? I guess Color Purple was like okay.
Oh no, I like the Color Purple. It wasn't great, but
yeah, it wasn't amazing. Mean Girls was good.
Is that all we've done so far this year? Maybe. Oh no, I guess we did like Percy Jackson too, the new one.
Oh yeah, that was literally last week. Wow.
Yeah, or 2 weeks ago now, but
true. Should we do?
Yeah, no, I guess two.
So far, so good. Yeah. But this was not a 2023 leftover. This was 2024. So even though I think it was supposed to be coming out like the last year, but they pushed it back because of the strikes. So, should we do a lightning round of the Mr. and Mrs.?
Yeah, let's do a lightning round. Let's start off with the Mr. because
I was gonna say that too. Okay. Scott Bakula, Brad Pitt, or Donald Glover. Eddie, who do you pick?
All right, so I'm a big fan of Scott Bakula in general.
Ooh.
But Donald Glover was giving a whole new level, and I was there for it. So I'm choosing him.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm also gonna go with Donald Glover. I think Donald Glover really, really, he understood the assignment and he delivered on the goods. Plus, I never realized what a transformation. I think he went from kind of this like a handsome guy. I think this one he just understood like what it means to be sexy and stuff, and he was just so sexy in this show.
Okay, yeah, I guess
he has some great outfits.
Oh my god, his fashion was so good in this show. Like the fashion, usually how like, and that's the other interesting thing, right? Because like usually when you're doing costume design, obviously you would focus more so on the female. But because of the dynamics and how they wrote the female character, like they gave the fashion to him, and it worked out. He had such good outfits.
Like episode 6, it was like, oh my god, I love that shirt. I love that shirt. I love that shirt.
I mean, he also has an amazing frame, right? So like,
yeah, no, and I didn't realize he was that jacked, or maybe he got it for this role.
I think he did get it for this role.
I guess I would go with him just because the other two are kind of annoying, and he's not. At least I didn't find him annoying from what I saw. I thought they were almost too comical. Right. Particularly Scott Bakula, who I also enjoy. I think, they kind of did him dirty there. Yeah. So I'll go Donald Glover too, which makes me think, are we all going to pick the same Mrs.? I wonder.
Okay. Let's go.
Let's go.
So, Eddie, who are you picking as your Mrs.?
I mean, I'm a big Angelina Jolie fan.
You are or you're not? I heard
I
you
am.
are.
I am.
You are? Are you?
I really like her.
Oh,
I really like her.
I
Like,
won't pick her on
I really like her as an
protest.
action person. Like all her
Yeah,
action roles. I'm a big. She does action really well.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she
but
does.
I think that the Amazon Prime gave us an opportunity to look at this Jane character so many levels here. Like we got some deep dark secrets and understanding of this character. So I'm gonna go with Amazon Prime Jane.
Maya Erskine. Okay. What about you, Rolando?
yeah. I also am actually. I mean, I did like Angelina Jolie was the better of the Mr. and Mrs. Smith, in my opinion, but Maya Erskine kind of came into this. She came in as the underdog, right? And that's a hard act to follow. Angelina Jolie like to like fill in those pumps, and she didn't wear pumps. She decided I'm gonna wear flats, and that's going to be who I am. And you know what? You are that is who you are, and I love it. So I'm going with Maya Erskine also. She didn't need the stilettos. She was okay wearing flats,
Yeah.
and she didn't care.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, it's not Maria Bello. I think they did a terrible job with her character from what I saw of the
Yeah,
pilot.
she was very one dimensional.
The real competition's between Maya and Angelina, and I'm gonna go with Angelina Jolie, not just because I'm a big fan and I have the major hots for her, but because at one time
You're a
when she was
contrarian.
making movies, she was kind of like the Tom Cruise. She does her own stunts, right? She's very much part of like making the movie. She gets that's why she loves doing action movies, is because she actually really gets involved with the stunts and with the action sequences, which is really impressive because not many women, maybe Charlize Theron, maybe it's more of like a thing now, but when they were making this movie 19 years ago, that just wasn't something that was talked about or popularized. And people tend to look at Angelina Jolie and look at her as like a sultry wife, man, husband stealing woman. But you know, one, she's more than that. And the fact that like she's that, like, I think she's one of the best action movie stars, at least she was, of like the 2010s and stuff. She's just so kick-ass. And on top of it, she's a good actress. And on top of it, she's super hot. So you gotta give it to Angelina Jolie.
Look, you don't have. It's fine. You don't have to defend it. Like I agree with you. I do think if Maya Erskine kind of stumbled in this role, or she just was like just as flat as they developed the original Mrs. Smith, then easily Angelina Jolie would win because like Angelina Jolie, she is I think the bigger star power in that film.
Absolutely.
Right? I think she does carry the film more so than Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is just being kind of like silly, goofy and stuff. She's bringing like kind of sultry. She's also bringing mysterious. She's bringing also sexy. I think she's doing way more heavy lifting than Brad Pitt's character did. So, yeah, but yeah, but this new Mrs. Smith, I think, is just like she was so well thought out and kind of well developed as a character that I'm just like, yeah, it's her.
Yeah.
It's her. And it's unfortunate, right? Because that's sometimes the problem when you're comparing TV show characters with like movie characters. Like the TV show characters, you have more time to grow with them and like understand them.
That's true. No, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, and this is such a story that like everything kind of needs to come to a climax if you're making a movie within like 2 hours. So like the story is just going to not be strong enough. So it was smart for them to drag it out as a TV series.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think? Have you seen any of the versions? Do you like one better than the other? Do you agree with any of us on our opinions today? Reach out to us. You can email us, remakesrebootsrevivals@gmail.com. Hit us up on Instagram @remakesrebootsrevivals. Hit us up on Twitter @remakes_podcast. Search for us by searching for Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals on Facebook or YouTube, where you can listen to full-length episodes. If you're listening on a podcasting platform, please go to that platform and give us a rating. And if you're specifically listening on Apple Podcasts, please head on over to there and give us a review, because that really helps people find us and helps us grow. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks for a special one that I definitely am looking forward to discussing. Because, yeah, I kind of held my tongue the last time we were in the same room and this movie was brought up. Because I wanted to save it for
okay,
the
guys.
recording of this
So,
episode.
Here you go, guys. Yeah, me and Nicole are in a movie club together, and so
And
I
Eddie too.
sometimes-
And I don't know. I'm
Seriously,
in
and
this movie
Eddie
club,
too.
You're in the movie
literally-
club?
I'm in the movie club.
I didn't know this.
And I even too, like even Levi was like, there was when you walked out of the room, Rolando, Levi was like, so what does Nicole and Whitman think?
Oh wow!
And
See,
I was like, fuck you, Levi. Fuck you.
you know, you gotta like, you need,
That's it.
you need
That's
some
I'm
lessons.
gonna go back to my werewolf picks. That's what I'm gonna start doing.
Oh.
Then I'm really gonna get
Nice.
noticed, right? I'm gonna be the motherfucker that brings all the werewolf movies.
Maybe that's it. Yeah, if you develop like a personality, like all your movies are kind of the same thing, then we'll never forget you.
Yeah, they'll hate me.
I'm sorry, you know. This is why Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie could never work out, is because like there's always one person who has to be the star, and you marry that star. Okay.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Getting our own Mr. and Mrs. Smith's dynamic right here.
That's the thing I wanted to say. I forgot. Where's our Mrs. and Mrs. Smith? That's another thing you could easily do if you went this route, or a Mr. and Mr. Smith.
That could be the second season, a queer.
Yeah, like
version.
give me a. I would be interested to see a lesbian take on the Mr. and Mrs. Smith franchise.
Yes, but what you
I
were
don't know. I don't. The gay might be too catty. I feel like.
that's stereotypical.
Hey, I speak from experience.
What you were going to say is that in your movie club you picked a movie that we're covering on the podcast, which I feel like we
Yes.
should avoid because then that's because
I
I'm in the
guess.
club now. It's going to
Right.
be, the three of us together in one club. We're going to talk about it. So
Maybe we should just record it and it'll release those as like specials.
maybe that would actually be cute. But join us 2 weeks from now when we talk about the Oscar-nominated film for Best Foreign Language Film that's currently on Netflix, Society of the Snow, which already had a film before it called Alive! ! All based on the same true life event. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Was
in 2 weeks.
alive with an exclamation point for real?
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
That seems inappropriate.
I mean, hey man, if you were alive, you'd be exclamation pointing it too.
I guess.
No, it
Yes.
didn't have it.
It didn't? Okay,
didn't.
I think I just
Oh,
added
okay.
it.
It's just a lie.
lie.
It's just a lie.
I was gonna say, like,
It's
I
just
don't-
alive, damn it.
It's a lie.
It should have an exclamation point. I'm fighting for that now.
Oh my god, that was hilarious. Okay. Yes, next week, or in 2 weeks, we'll be covering, just in time for the Oscars, La
Yeah.
Sociedad de la Nieve.
I love how they didn't update the fact that in the 1993 movie that, they're on their way from Uruguay to Chile, and yet all these people speak English.
Oh. Well,
In the movie Alive. Like,
oh. Yeah, no. That,
it's just a
that was a
90s
hugely
movie where...
problematic thing. I mean, for God's sakes, you have not Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, you have Ethan Hawke.
Slater?
No, yeah.
Is it Ethan Hawke? I thought it was Christian Slater. Christian Slater's in it too, right?
Nope, it's Ethan Hawke.
Oh, it is Ethan. Well, Ethan Hawke playing a Uruguayan.
Yep.
So, you
Yep.
know, let's... We'll talk about that.
We'll
in
talk
2
about
weeks,
that in 2
guys.
weeks, so... Until next time,
Stay
unoriginal.
unoriginal.